Welcome back. Today we're going to look at lesson planning. And I thought I'd share a little backstory with you to kick off this lesson. Let's see, back in 2006 is when I signed up for my life coaching diploma. And as a part of that, it included a whole section on speakers and trainers. I loved public speaking and training and was even invited to come back to my coaching school as sort of an assistant during the speakers and trainers trainings. And I participated in 2 of those. And I loved the part. My favorite part of speakers and trainers was how you actually go about structuring your lesson, structuring your presentation. So this is a tool I've learned, back, I think it was actually 2007 when I did my speakers and trainers, and I've been using ever since. So this is the tool I'm going to teach you, and I've had nine years of perfecting it so far and practicing and going, because I still use this tool every time I sit down to create a new piece of content. So this is super, super powerful. So I thought we'd kick off with this little quote. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe of living that suits all cases. And this is something that was said by Carl Jung, and you'll understand why I've chosen him in just a little while. But there is a recipe for teaching that suits all cases. He's talking about life, and I totally agree. But when it comes to teaching and making sure your teaching actually resonates with any audience member, I do believe that there is a secret formula. So this is the magic formula for creating lessons that light up and delight every personality type out there. And you might be thinking, oh my gosh, is that really possible? And in my experience, yes, it totally is. This formula that I'm about to teach you works for one-on-one coaching sessions. It works for group classes. It works in in-person situations and in online situations. So it's the perfect tool to learn and to master as a coach, because once you've nailed this, you can create the assets for all of these different components in your business. And the sooner you start to use this formula, the better, because as we know, practice, 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 and then eventually you really get it, and this stuff becomes second nature. And the great thing about this tool is you'll never have to stare at a blank page again. I've done lots of surveys with coaches over my coaching career, and a common thing, not everybody has this one, but a lot of coaches do, where it's like when it comes to creating content, lessons, blog posts, videos, they're like, where do I start? And they're looking at a blank page. With this formula, you never have a blank page again. So I'll give you an example. If I was going to sit down right now and write a blog post that I'm going to create on my launch tomorrow, I would use this formula. If I'm going to sit down right now and create a lesson for you guys, I'm going to use this formula. In fact, I use this formula to create this presentation. So blank page is no more, because all you have to do is write this simple 4 words and answer those 4 questions, and boom, you're off and going. Okay, and the secret is, drum roll, a little a tool called Format. Now, what we're going to cover in this lesson is I'm going to show you how to do lesson planning using this Format tool. We're going to look, first of all, what is Format? So I'm going to explain a little bit of the history and the background for you. And then we're going to look at how you actually design a lesson using the Format structure. And then, of course, I'm going to send you off and you can do your own lesson. And then we have our, for those of you who are on the live Q&A calls, then we have those, and we can answer all of your questions that come up from having experienced the process for yourself. So let's kick it off with what is Format. Now, Format was invented back in 1972 by Bernice McCarthy, and she was a teacher, and she really created this to help teachers. She based her research from the fields of education, psychology, neurology, and management, with all of her sort of leading peers in those areas at the time, Carl Jung being one of them, and a whole list of other names too. Now, her format, the structure she came up with, really uses the individual learning styles and brain dominance. So, if you're right brain, left brain, those kind of patterns to break people into 4 different learning styles. So that's one of the keys to Format. of course, 4 different styles, and it's called format. You'll see how this all comes together in a minute. And also, each learning style prefers a different type of instructional strategy. Some like to understand why it's relevant to them. Some like to actually do the steps for themselves. Some like to imagine a future time when they're using this thing, and so on and so forth. So what format does is it basically pulls together these different learning styles and instructional strategies and shows you how to incorporate that into a single lesson so that you can make sure that no matter which learning style your student is, you're meeting their needs. And if you've got a class, then that's awesome because everybody's going to be different. And even some people have a couple of different learning styles. I know I'm 2 or 3 dominantly. No, sorry, at least 2 of the ones dominantly. When I show you this, you'll probably be able to pick out which ones you are as well. If you want to know more about the history of format, then check out this website. It's www.ascd.org. I went to their website to try to figure out what that acronym meant. Couldn't find it. If you find it, post it in the Facebook group. I'd love to know. Anyway, and just if you go to their search and search format, you'll get all these really great old journals that are all around when this kind of stuff was starting to come out. One of the articles journal entries that I liked the most was one called Using the Format System to Bring Learning Styles to Schools. It's great. If you're into, you're a researcher type, a what type person, which we'll get to in a minute, then you'll probably want to read that article. So I wanted to put that in there for you. Okay, so format is basically based on this idea that there are different learner types. And you can see that this is a circle and it's got it goes around, but look at where number 1 is, because that's where we're going to start, and then we're going to go around clockwise. So first of all, if we've got why people, and why people really, if it doesn't make sense to them, if they can't find personal meaning in why they're learning the thing, then they're not going to be interested and you're going to lose them. And you may have noticed when you've given presentations or even participated in presentations in the past, these are probably the people that are like on their phone right in the beginning. Because if the presenter doesn't start off by hooking them into why this is going to change their life and shake up their world and make everything better, then they're on their phone straight away. So why is really important to kick off with, because those are the people with the shortest attention span. So those are the why people. Next, you've got the what people. They're a little bit more patient than the why people, but these tend to be the intellectuals, the researcher types. They really want to understand the conceptual meaning, and they want to understand that this is legitimate stuff that you're talking about, and you're not just making it up, or it's evidence-based. So they need to understand. We'll get to some of the definitions and things that they need to understand. Anyway, you probably know those types too. They're really like, okay, convince me first. I need to make sure I'm buying into this concept. And then you've got the how people, and they really, tend to be maybe a little bit more kinesthetic. They want to experience things. They want to practice it. They want to be able to know that they'll be able to do this thing that you're teaching them for themselves and go away and try it. And then once they've tried it, then that's when they really, really get the learning. And then last but not least, we've got the what if people. They're creators and imaginers. So they're the people that, in there, you'll see them in every presentation. Maybe you've experienced them, as a presenter or a participant in a lesson before, in the middle of the lesson, and the instructor hasn't even really finished covering the content. They're like, oh, but what if, because they're off using this stuff in their imagination, in their head, going for it because they're so engaged. And they'll ask this out there what if question that's and usually the instructor's like, just wait till I finish, we'll get there. Or it's some sometimes it's a really random thing if they're really creative and imaginative. Anyway, those people are out there, they're really engaged. If you're getting what if questions, it's a great sign. Okay, so the point of this slide is basically for you to realize that there are different kind of people, and hopefully just by me going through those and planting those little examples, you're like, oh yeah, I can identify with that. I can relate to having why people, or what in people, or how people, or what if people in some of the presentations that you've given yourself, or that you've participated in yourself. Okay, so that's the main point of this slide. We're going to go into this in a whole lot more detail in this presentation, so I don't need to cover everything in one slide. Okay, so the other part of format is that the different learning styles need different instruction. So let's look at this now. So now let's start off with the why people, because they're our least patient people. If you don't help them understand how this is going to really impact them straight away, you're going to lose them. So, think about when you're talking to somebody, how do you really engage them and get them to understand how what you're talking about has a huge relevance to them. And these are things you'd use stories that salespeople use this all the time. They focus on the benefits, the key benefits. You can give tangible examples that help demonstrate why this is going to make a difference in your life. And you can use things like quotes. Okay, let's move on now to the what people. The what people are a little bit different. They want to understand concepts. They want to understand that this is legitimate stuff that you're teaching them. So you need to give them some definitions, some facts, some statistics. You need to show them how this lesson relates to the curriculum. They like that kind of structured, analytical stuff. So you've got to give them that stuff. And if you've sold them that you're on the right track, then they'll listen to the rest of the lesson. Now, the how people don't care so much about the why. They don't care so much about the what. They're probably there because they just want the steps. So they'll wait for the steps. So you just need to make sure that you teach them the steps and the processes of how you do the thing that you're teaching in your lesson so they can go away and try it on themselves. Demonstrations are really, really useful for how people because they can see it, how it could work by you demonstrating it, and then give them an exercise where they can go and have an experience themselves. And then you'll make all the how people happy. All right. And then last but not least, you've got the what if people, and they really want to apply the learning in new ways. So, they're where you need to think about when you're presenting, okay, so this thing that I'm teaching, what are the exceptions to the rule here? How can I expand this concept for the people who are already dreaming about weird and wonderful ways they can use this down the track in their future? What else do they need to know? What else can I share? So that's how you cover the what if people. In this course, in the academy, we actually address a lot of the what if stuff that comes up by having those live Q&As, because that gives lots of opportunity for all sorts of imaginings and things to come out and then just be answered on the fly. So they don't necessarily have to be incorporated into your presentation, although they can be. Okay, moving right along. Let's look. So hopefully that's given you a good idea of what format is, where it's come from. It's grounded in research. It's been formulated to revolutionize education. This is an adult, I think it's an adult learning system that's really widely used these days. Anyway, so that sort of lays the groundwork of what format is. Now, what I want you to do, the theory and everything is all good, but I need you to be able to actually apply this to your signature program. You've mapped out the key topics, the key lessons that you're going to want to teach in your signature program. And now I want you to be able to use format to be able to flesh each of your lessons out, to put some meat on those bones, to be able to put a presentation together if you want to, or at least an outline for a coaching session. So, how basically the format is 4 parts. We've got the why, the what, the how, and the what if. And we'll go into each of those in detail now so that you can apply this to your lesson. So when you kick off your lesson, this is why you never need to start with a blank page, right? Just write down, whenever you need to create your lesson, you write down why. And just make sure that when you're filling out this book, you're talking to that person who needs to make personal meaning of why they need to engage in this content. And if you've got them hooked, then that's sorted. So these people want to know, why is this lesson essential to my transformation? So you need to explain that really clearly. It doesn't need to be long. It can be 1 sentence. It can be through a story. It can be through an example. Why is it relevant to me? Just make sure that you're addressing this. And then they'll pay attention and learn when they know how it will make their life better. It can include stories, benefits, examples, and quotes. The what people. Remember, these people need conceptual meaning. So they want to know, what is this lesson topic? What does it mean? Is it legitimate? and they'll pay attention and learn when they understand and accept the key concepts. In this lesson, for example, the key concept was format. So hopefully I've laid the foundation in the previous section for what format is and where it came from, so that people can be like, yeah, that's a cool tool. I'm going to learn that and I'm going to use that for my lessons. So it can include, the what section can include a definition, facts, and statistics. It can also include stories and quotes as well, but I just didn't want to muddy things up, so I'm trying to just focus on the key things that make each of the sections different from each other. And last but not least, you can set expectations by including how this fits into the curriculum and clearly list what you'll cover in the lesson. What people really do like to know that, and it's kind of like a table of contents. If you're imagining a PowerPoint presentation, you have a table of contents slide, like what we're going to cover in this lesson is blah, blah, and blah. And I usually have that in all of my lessons because I know what people love that. In confession, I'm usually a little bit weak because I'm not a what person in the putting in that research piece and the definitions in the background. So anyway, I'm answering some of the what if stuff in the what section. Okay, sorry, in the how section. So let's look at how you address the how people. These are the really more earthy, kinesthetic type people, and they basically just need to practice. And their big thing is, how do I do this? How do I do this for myself? They will pay attention and learn when they can try it out on themselves. So usually they're the people, that are taking really frantic notes when it's like, when it comes to the steps, the how-to stuff. And then, because they're really going to go and try it out when they get home. And the how section can include steps, processes, demonstrations, and exercises. And last but not least, we've got the what if people. They need to create and imagine what you're teaching them into into the future, an imagined future. So, and they're always going to be asking, but what if, but what if, but what if? So you need to fill in those gaps where you can for the what if people. And they'll pay attention and learn pretty much. They'll pay attention. They're very patient people. They might ask annoying questions throughout the presentation, but it's because they're paying attention. They're already trying on what you're saying. And they'll pay attention and learn by applying this into an imagined future situation. So to make the what if people happy, what you can do, especially if you've been working your content for a long time and the common questions you get asked when you teach a certain topic, then just make sure that you think through, okay, what are the most common questions I get asked after the end when I teach this? And then you can start to include those in your explanation, in your presentation. So you're addressing the what ifs like as they're coming up in the content. Now, if you're new, you don't exactly know what all those what if scenarios are going to be because you haven't really road tested your content so much. So just make sure you always have the opportunity in your lesson or your coaching session to say, okay, so there's the main content. What would you like to share? What would you like to know? And what would you like to learn? You don't have to say it like that, but those are some nice open-ended questions that give the audience lots of space to bring whatever they're sitting with to you and to explore and flesh out. So it's just a nice way to phrase it. So as long as you build in that opportunity, that's really all you need to do to address the what if people. Okay, so let me give you an example because we like examples and demonstrations. So in the Mining for Gold lesson that you guys had as the first lesson in the Academy, this is like the really, really, really high level version of it, the Cliff Notes version of it. But we had the why, the what, the how, and the what if. And basically, here's how I broke that presentation down. And just circling back to why you never need to look at a blank page ever again once you know format, because you write down why. You write down what, you write down how, you write down what if, and then you just fill in at least one sentence against each of those. And then you just start to flesh out the content and then you're done. It's amazing. I've used this so much. Okay. So for the example in the Mining for Gold, the why was to understand, and you've got to understand what clients need, design a program that fixes it so that they buy it. Now, that's a compelling why for all of you. I know it is. So I didn't need to say much other than that in my why. And I think in that lesson, I didn't give very many stories, quotes, or examples or anything, because I just wanted to get straight into the content. Hopefully you were sold with that as just the big why. What you need to know, I didn't spend a lot of time on definitions or explaining or background or history or quotes in that lesson. I basically just listed out, this is what we're going to cover in the Mining for Gold lesson. And I listed out the 3 main things I wanted to teach you. And then I spent the most of the lesson on the how, because I think that a lot of you just wanted to get straight into the exercises so you could start getting these results for your business. So I taught the 3 main topics and in enough detail so that you could go away and actually implement them. You could go away and, let's see, it was write your top 3 challenges question. You knew where to post it, and then you could go ahead and post that and consolidate your results. And if I knew that if I taught you enough to go away and do that, you'd be really happy with this lesson. And then the what if, I didn't address that directly in my presentation either. And that was basically the purpose of the Q&A call. And then you guys brought a lot of good stuff to the live meeting. So that's an example of how quickly this can be turned around to outline a lesson. So I do want to give you some tips and considerations. This is all for all the what if people who are already imagining how this is going to work out in their business. And these are some common questions I often get. Let's see, coaching sessions versus classes. I wanted to put this in there because, you know, I'm talking about designing a lesson, but I do suggest for some of you that you don't go straight to teaching group classes and having presentations and all that straight away, because you might be like, you know what, I would really like to road test my content and make sure my signature program is solid enough. I might want to test it with some one-on-one clients first. It just gives you a whole lot more flexibility if you just do some one-on-one road testing first. So, but you can still use format. I would still highly recommend that you flesh out the lesson, except the difference is that instead of delivering it online or delivering it to a group, you're going to deliver your lesson in a one-on-one situation. And that's great because you get instant feedback from one person, you know, and you work with a couple of one-on-one clients, and then all of a sudden you've got some great momentum and feedback on your content, and then you can chop and change stuff based on what they've said to you and their reaction. So that's kind of what I wanted to cover, is for those of you who are thinking, oh, can I use this in a one-on-one coaching session? Absolutely. Just think of your coaching session as it's a lesson for one person. Okay. And then for those of you who are going to jump straight to classes or groups, that's totally fine too. I would suggest you keep your groups small just so that you've got a lot of flexibility there, and go for it. But definitely format will just make sure that you're addressing all of their needs and you're addressing all those different learning styles that you're going to be presented with. Okay, let's talk about timing. When do you make your lessons? This is kind of linked to the previous one. But, you know, let's say you've mapped out your mud map and you're pretty clear on the main content you want to cover, and you even go and do your validation calls, which is coming up soon in the course. And you're even into a sales situation. You could have sold your first product, your first client into your signature program without having created any lessons, if you choose to. This is kind of more of a, what kind of lifestyle do you want, and how much, what's going to be stressful to you and what isn't. So it's a real personal choice. But, you know, you could be making your lesson the day before if you wanted to. And if it's going to be just a one-on-one call, you know, a bullet point list of just why, what, how, what if, and those in just a couple of bullet points on what you want to make sure you cover in that one-on-one coaching session, which is basically a lesson. That's it. So this can basically be as You can make it as as robust or as simple as you want to, and you can shorten time frames quite a lot. It just really comes. Just have a good think about, if I do this the day before, it's going to totally stress me out and I'm going to freak out. Or yeah, do it the day before. I've got the whole day, and that just feels really comfortable to me. Then do that. So there is no right or wrong here with the timing on when to make your lessons. But I wanted, for those of you who like to have maybe 3, 5, or even all the content done before you sell anything, that's are at least mapped out. I wanted to at least give you this lesson so that you can have that sense of peace, inner peace. But for those of you who are going to do it right before, that's totally fine too. Okay. And then the last one, do I have to use all the format? And do I have to use all of the elements in each part? So let me give you an example. Let's see. I've given you guys a couple of lessons already, and I don't think I've ever used a story, a quote, or an example in my why, which is that first introduction. I usually just give you the main benefit really loud and clear, and then I move straight on. So the answer to this is no. You can take bits out of format, and you can use every single component in every single lesson presentation that you ever give. So it really comes to your own personal preference. Now, what I can tell you is that I think that it will be better if you do use all of the components in each thing. It just enriches the whole experience. But do you have to? No, because time is of the essence, and we want to make sure that we basically just get the learning across. And as long as you do that, then you're fine. So that's all. I think that's all I wanted to say on that. If you guys have any other questions or what ifs that are coming out loud and clear for you, I look forward to hearing them on the QA call or on the Facebook group. Okay, so the last part of this is to go and plan your own lesson. And of course, I'm going to refer you to the Academy Student Resource Guide. Just turn to the lesson planner section, and you'll see that there is a little space for you to go ahead and map out one lesson with some leading questions that, of course, link back to the format structure. All right, so I wish you luck with that, and I look forward to hearing how you go with designing your lessons. All right, have a great one, everyone, and happy coaching.